I've always in this league thought of the 3 goals is win your division, best seeding possible, win a Super Bowl.
You've had 6 other teams before. This is the 7th roster where you're like, they've got it.
They have a chance at it. The better teams that we've ever been a part of have all taken over and run themselves. And this is one that can do that.
After a season where the Denver Broncos ranked 7th overall in total defense, led the league in total sacks with 63 sacks, and had the first corner since the 2019 season to win Defense Player of the Year and a pass retain a second, alongside with a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix who was able to elevate throughout the season and manage the game well, I think it's valid now to ask this question about the Denver Broncos. In 2025, is this current Denver Broncos team ready to win now? That answer is very fluid and fluctuating, but certainly from a defensive perspective, I believe they're right there. Them being the 7th ranked overall defense don't even tell the whole story to me from this past season, and we're gonna throughout this video talk about the additions they've added this offseason, because you can make the argument that they truly even improved this defense even more, and they might be a contender for having the best defense in the 2025 season. From the 2024 stats perspective, they allowed 19 points per game, which was the 3rd lowest in the NFL. They had the lowest red zone percentage of touchdowns allowed with 44%. They allowed the 9th lowest yards against opposing offense with 325.7 per game. They allowed the 5th lowest rushing yards per game and the 22nd lowest passing yards per game. So this team absolutely dictated the way that they played against most of their opponents. They had some anomaly performances where their defense was kind of down, like performances against the Bengals in week 17, and both performances, in my opinion, against the Chargers. That's a team certainly that they want to end up passing. And yes, the Broncos made the playoffs in the 2024 season, and they lost both of their matchups to the Chargers in the 2024 season. So that's a team right there in their division who they want to pass, because we already know that this team in the AFC West has to try to contend with the Chiefs this upcoming season, but they lost to the Chiefs in really their only matchup that we can count last year that they played in early November, because the game in week 18, the Chiefs rested all of their starters, and the Broncos did win that game 38-0. But the first time they played against the Chiefs, they didn't miss that field goal. They could have beat the Chiefs in that game. So how far necessarily is this team from competing in the division? We're going to see this season. I don't think it's far at all, and their defense has the opportunity to really wreck a lot of teams, not only in their division, but in the NFL overall this year. Sean Payton, as we all know, is one of the best offensive minds that we've seen as an NFL coach in NFL history, being a Super Bowl champion, winning Super Bowl 54 with the New Orleans Saints. Right now, he also ranks 17th in terms of regular season wins in NFL history. He's trying to get that up. But like how he said in the intro, there's 3 phases to how he views his team winning at a high level. First, winning a division, contending for a high playoff seed, and building a Super Bowl contender. And this team, from a defensive perspective, embodies that. But with Sean Payton being an offensive mind, lauded in many cases about having a difficult system to figure out the terminology, things of that nature, how he handled things with the Saints, and really just challenging Bo Nix off rip from his rookie season last year to hone in and learn the system and master it. You can make the argument that the year 2 Bo Nix will be more refined, and he's already an older quarterback as he was a 24-year-old rookie. Having a quarterback like that on a rookie contract alongside with a supporting cast in the defense and some offensive weapons that they've added can be really integral for this team taking another step to be a realistic contender in the AFC and potentially making a deep playoff run. The Broncos already have Courtland Sutton, who I believe is a very underrated receiver. He's the definition of consistent, has been. His stats last year in 2024 showed that 81 receptions for over 1,000 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns, averaging 13.3 yards per reception. And he recently just signed a 4-year, $92 million contract extension with $41 million guaranteed with the Denver Broncos. So that further solidifying their wide receiver 1 spot in Denver. But I also like some sneaky additions with them signing a player in Evan Ingram, who is 30 years old and turns 31 right before the season starts in September. But he's going to be a good security blanket of a tight end for the Denver Broncos and a Bo Nix. And last year in 2024, let's face it, he wasn't healthy. He only played 9 games and only had 47 receptions for 365 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. But in his best season, the 2023 season with the Jacksonville Jaguars, where he played all 17 games, he had 114 receptions for 963 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns, falling just shy under 1,000 receiving yards. But if he can play anywhere similar to that 2023 level, or even how he did in 2022, which was solid as well when he had 700 receiving yards, I think that that'll be perfect for the Denver Broncos, adding in another receiving threat for Bo Nix sophomore season. They also drafted the Pat Bryant, wide receiver out of Illinois, in the 3rd round to be another potential big body threat of a wide receiver at that 6'3" frame to help a Bo Nix. And if you look at his production in the 2024 season for Illinois, maybe he didn't have the most receiving yards out of all wide receivers in the country, but he was very productive in the moments that he played. In his 12 games in 2024, he had 54 receptions for 984 receiving yards, averaging 18.2 yards per reception and 10 receiving receiving touchdowns. The year before that, in 2023, had 43 receptions for 560 receiving yards and 7 receiving touchdowns. If you look at every season throughout his 4 years at Illinois, all he did was improve. And he's had some comparisons to a Michael Thomas in terms of a receiving position standpoint and that type of prototype of receiver that Sean Payton looked for with Michael Thomas and the Saints. Pat Bryant has had some similar comparisons to, and we'll see. I think that he'll have a great opportunity in this Sean Payton system to have a really good and integral role for the foreseeable future at the wide receiver position, alongside of a wide receiver like a Cortland Sutton. Adding to the running back room, I like moves that they made in signing a J.K. Dobbins from their divisional rival last year, who played with the Chargers. Last season, he had 195 carries for 905 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns, playing 13 games, dealt with an injury at the tail end of the season, but I like him being in the Denver Broncos backfield. But for me, a draft pick that I love that the Broncos made in the second round, drafting RJ Harvey, getting in on the running back sweepstakes from this 2025 NFL draft that had 25 total running backs drafted, in 12 of those running backs being drafted within the first 4 rounds. And RJ Harvey was certainly one of the best running back prospects in this year's draft at the age of 24 years old. The past couple of seasons have been really great for him at UCF. Last year particularly, he had a great season rushing the football, had 22 rushing touchdowns for over 1,500 rushing yards on 232 carries, averaging nearly 7 yards per carry. And then even before that, in 2023 and 2022, if you look at 2023, he averaged 6 yards per carry, having 226 rushing attempts for 1,400 rushing yards. And in 2022, averaging 6.7 yards per carry on 118 attempts and 796 rushing yards. So all he's done throughout his career at UCF is improve. He didn't get to play in the 2021 season due to a torn ACL, but when he stepped back in the 2022 season, he was able to have a solid season. And then in 2023 and 2024, both of those 2 years, I think really played a role in him getting drafted in the second round of the NFL draft this year. And a lot of people made a big deal about, before the first preseason game that the Broncos had, being ranked 5th on the depth chart. You know, this is what Sean Payton does. Last year, Bo Nix was ranked 3rd on the depth chart. We see that he had one of the better rookie years last season. So don't take too much of that. I think RJ Harvey is going to be a huge piece in this running game for the 2025 season for the Broncos and for the future, and could, all intensive cases, have a Bucky Irving type of impact on this team in terms of really looking to be the running back 2 from the start of the season, but end up taking over as running back 1 throughout the season and when the Broncos are positioning for a potential great playoff run. But for me though, throughout this video, we're going to really highlight their defensive line. I know I've already raved about them a little bit, and in a league that is very offensive oriented, I think a team like the Broncos really should be applauded for the type of performance that they put on last year on the field, practically defensively, under Sean Payton and their defensive coordinator Vance Joseph, who you can make the argument that if he ends up having another defensive performance, if the Broncos have another dominant defensive year like I think they will in 2025, he could end up being a head coach elsewhere in the 2026 season because of the phenomenal job that he did, already interviewing for some head coaching jobs, and he's been a head coach in the past with the Broncos in the 2017 season. This team has a chance to overall change the narrative in the AFC, and last year I think they caught a lot of people off guard with the success that they had, and they weren't necessarily just bad in 2023 when they had Russell Wilson, but they weren't good enough. But last year, the type of lead that they had, making the playoffs and stuff like that. But this year they have the opportunity, kind of similarly to what the Chargers do in this upcoming year after making the playoffs in 2024, to further build on that and be a real threat in not only the AFC West, but in the AFC in general. But before we analyze even further the Denver Broncos' chances and if they're ready to win now in the 2025 season, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe and turn on post notifications. We post videos here about the NBA, NFL, Marvel, DC, pop culture, all types of content like that. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter/X at Swaggy Russ, on TikTok at Swaggy Russ02 for shorts, reels, and more short videos and things of that nature. Stay tuned for more podcast information. To also find these videos on Spotify, Apple, and wherever you get your podcasts at, essentially transcribed in audio. We'll have more information on that soon, I promise. I know I keep saying it throughout the past couple of videos, but I've been recording and posting these videos back to back, so I've been prioritizing that, but stay tuned, it's coming. But anyways, let's answer this important question. Are the Denver Broncos ready to win now? Before the 2024 season, it had been 9 years since the Denver Broncos made the NFL playoffs, and in that season, they of course won the Super Bowl in Peyton Manning's final NFL season when they won Super Bowl 50. And last year, I think even despite having the type of acquiescence of talent that they have, having a Pat Surtain, who I believe is the best cornerback in the NFL, and he showed that winning Defensive Player of the Year, I think a lot of people thought that they were potentially a year or two away, or really still had a lot of questions on Bo Nix. And I think a lot of people still have a ton of questions on Bo Nix because, let's be real, guys, in the NFL, if you don't have a quarterback, you don't matter. It's just that simple. It might sound very harsh, but it's the truth. In terms of a winning perspective, competitive and contending, if you do not have a guy behind center who can be competent and at times make plays, you don't even have to win because of him, but if he can be very serviceable to manageable and at times make key throws to help win the game and really have a complementary running game, I think that really sets a tone for a quarterback like that to be one that you can win with. If you don't have that, you're not going to win the NFL in 2025, and it's just that simple. Everyone wants to talk about, for example, in San Francisco with them having a Jimmy Garoppolo for those postseason runs that they had, and yes, they were able to make deep playoffs runs, make the NFC Championship game for a couple of years, and also make it to the Super Bowl, but did they win it all? No. So that's my case in point right there, that even though those type of quarterbacks, you in the right system with the right coaching staff, and Sean Payton, for example, is one of those great coaches and offensive minds that certainly benefits a quarterback in his system, and you can make the case that Bo Nix did that for sure this past season. A lot of people still have valid reservations on him if he can be a quarterback that elevates his team. I'm not sure that those Garoppolos, or back in the day with the Ravens when they won the Super Bowl for their first time, a Trent Dilfer of that nature, if you can win now in the NFL with those type of quarterbacks. But I can be wrong, and this defense, certainly you can make the argument, will make it easier for a quarterback at that level. But Bo Nix, I believe that he's more than just a game manager, and he made a lot of solid strides last year in his rookie year to show that he can be a top 15 to top 10 quarterback in this upcoming season. That's not a crazy take in my opinion to say at all. In his rookie season last year, Bo Nix had a completion percentage of 66.3, going for over 3,700 passing yards, 29 passing touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. A really solid touchdown to interception ratio. You'd like to get those 12 interceptions to being under 10, but I think we can probably say that he was the second best rookie quarterback after Jaden Daniels last season. I know Drake May had a lot of good moments too though, but from a statistics standpoint and overall success in his rookie year, I think Bo Nix had a better season. And rushing wise, Bo Nix was able to show some of his dual threat ability, having 92 carries for 430 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. That's another element that is perfect for Bo Nix in the Sean Payton system, and I think that he can continue to build on that. I understand why a lot of people maybe still think that he's mid and things of that nature too, but like I just previously stated, I believe that he can be a top 15 to top 12 level quarterback overall this season, and when it's all said and done, be a quarterback that has a really productive season in 2025. But as I stated before though, for me, defense is really gonna set the tone for this Denver Broncos team. And I know I said a similar thing for the Arizona Cardinals a few videos ago in their season preview. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. But for the Broncos, I think out of any team in the NFL, they certainly will be 1000% identified first off from their defense. And they had the 7th ranked defense in 2024, the 3rd ranked total defense last season. But I like a lot of moves that they've made to even elevate and add to that defense already with a Pat Surtain, with players like Zach Allen on the defensive line. And I believe that Zach Allen is one of the most underrated defensive ends in the league last year in 2024, having 15 TFLs, recording 8.5 sacks with 61 total tackles, is a dominant presence on that defensive line. Linebacker Nick Benito led the entire Broncos team individually with 13.5 sacks himself in his 3rd season last year. He had 13.5 of those 63 sacks. He's continuing to emerge as one of the best young linebackers in this league. DJ Jones, John Franklin Myers, Jonathan Cooper, Alex Singleton, Riley Moss as well. But now they've added 2 guys from the San Francisco 49ers who I think can be really gamers and be very integral from not only a leadership perspective, but overall helping their defense reach another level. And 2 players in a Dre Greenlaw, the linebacker position, and a Tanoa Hufanga from the 49ers to be added that are now on this Denver Broncos roster. First of all, something that those 2 players add to this team instantly is experience and playing high level games. They both played in Super Bowl 58. I know Dre Greenlaw suffered that injury, tearing his Achilles, which was devastating during that Super Bowl, and then returned last year, but wasn't the best in moments and still dealt with some nagging injuries. But I believe that time and that struggle, and now with him having a finally healthy offseason where he could just focus on getting better after signing this 3-year, $31.5 million contract with the Broncos, it could be an opportunity for him to really show why he's a very dominant linebacker, cerebral linebacker at that. We're going to disregard the games from last season because, like I said, he only played 2 games last year coming off of that Achilles injuries, but look at his production in both the 2022 and 2023 seasons. Let's start with 2023. He had 120 total tackles, 1.5 sacks, 4 pass deflections, and then in the year prior to that, Greenlaw had 127 total tackles, an interception, 6 passes deflected, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. This guy has been consistent, and I know he was injured in 2024 and didn't didn't get to play a lot, but this year I think he's going to remind a lot of people of the player that he was pre-Achilles injury, and that's going to bode well for the Broncos defense that was already one of the best in the league. And then Tanoa Hufanga, I know it's felt like he's been in the league forever, but he's only 25 years old, and he was injured some last season. He only played 7 games, but if you want to look at his best season in 2022, he had 97 total tackles, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 4 interceptions, and a pick 6. That's when he was 22 years old, and he's continued to be consistent. I know in 2023 he only played 10 games, but even then he had 52 tackles and 3 interceptions and 3 passes deflected, and last year he only played 7 games. But I think that he's a player, you can make the argument that we haven't even seen his ceiling or potential yet, and he can continue to hone into that on the Denver Broncos roster. And him and Dre Greenlaw just coming to this team from the San Francisco 49ers is going to be integral in terms of them learning how to do things right and potentially add another element to this defense that we didn't think they were capable of having. Not only did they add Talona Hufanga to their secondary, but they also drafted in the first round, the 20th pick overall, Jahdae Barron, cornerback out of Texas, and I absolutely love his game. First and foremost, he is a disruptive defensive back. You saw that in a lot of moments at UT, and his production and stats showed that. The tape more so showed it than its stats, but still, he's very sticky in coverage, and I love how disciplined of a defender that he was at the cornerback position. And last year in 2024, he had 67 total tackles, 3 TFLs, mind you, and 5 interceptions. I believe that he's gonna learn from Pat Surtain, who's the best cornerback in the league, and Hufanga, who has been a very experienced and consistent cornerback. That's perfect for Barron. He can continue to improve and develop, and at the same time, potentially at sometimes maybe play nickel, play on the outside, move him around a lot. That's a perfect type of pick for them, adding to their defense. And not only him in the draft, they also drafted Savion Jones, defensive end from LSU, in the 3rd round. In 2024, he had 40 total tackles, 8 TFLs, and 4.5 sacks. He's best utilized as a pass rusher, so I believe that he'll be a rotational piece to start off in Vance Joseph's defensive system, but can have the opportunity to continue to get more reps and opportunities as the season goes on. They also drafted outside linebacker Clay Robinson out of Alabama. So I just love how the Broncos not only added depth in the draft, but also added some veterans to help take this defense to another level in 2025, and that's perfect for not only the defense but for Sean Payton as a head coach, and really the play caller too, and a Bo Nix, who is trying to emerge as a franchise quarterback and be one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. The Denver Broncos have the 15th ranked strength of schedule in the NFL, so at that point it's pretty average in terms of the teams that they'll be going against. They will be playing against 2 playoff teams within their own division, and the Chiefs and the Chargers, who made it last year as well, in addition to the Broncos making it. But besides them in total, the Broncos are playing 6 total teams that made the playoffs in the 2024 season. So if anything, that can be used to an advantage for this roster. And if they end up dominating a lot throughout this year, there's going to be that conversation of, oh, they haven't played against anybody. They'll bring up the same point that they're only playing against 6 teams that made the playoffs in 2024. But if anything, that's a great opportunity for them to finally win a division, something that they haven't done since 2015. And as I mentioned in my Chargers and Chiefs video, the Chiefs have an opportunity for a 10th consecutive year to win a division. I know the Broncos are certainly not trying to allow that to happen. But let's look at their schedule real quick. Week 1, they play against the Titans, and although I think Cam Ward has the potential to be a really solid rookie and potentially contend for the Offensive Rookie of the Year award, I think that's going to be a very rough matchup for him going against the Broncos defense. So with that being said, I would think the Broncos have the potential to dominate in that game. And they play against the Colts in week 2. I think that should be a dub, regardless of Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones starting, whoever. I think the Broncos can dominate them. Now week 3 is going to be interesting against the Chargers. As I mentioned before, the Broncos lost both matchups against the Chargers in the 2024 season, but I can see them splitting this upcoming year because the Broncos have improved on both sides, and they're for sure a better team than they were last year. They play against the Bengals in week 4, a week 17 rematch of that thrilling overtime game where both teams were trying to contend for a playoff spot, and ultimately the Broncos ended up taking that final 7th seed in the 2024 playoffs, where they did lose against the Bills, but still that was a good season for them last year, and that was they ended up making that position because of how they started. The Bengals missed the playoffs because although they beat the Broncos in that week 17 game, they started off too slow. Then week 5, they played the defending Super Bowl champions in the Philadelphia Eagles. I can see them winning that game. And one thing I failed to mention earlier, guys, Denver, they play in high altitude, so a lot of these teams got to get adjusted to playing in their environment, and that's an advantage for sure for the Denver Broncos. We see that talked about for the Denver Nuggets, but certainly that's also a factor for the Broncos as well too, and they play a physical type of football. They play against the Jets in week 6. I'm intrigued by that Jets team, but I still think the Broncos are better. Giants, same thing. I think the Broncos should win that. The Cowboys, that's an interesting game because I think the Cowboys are going to be a playoff team this upcoming year, but like I said, it's always tough for a team that's not used to those factors in Denver coming up there from Texas, for example, and playing against them. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Broncos won that game. Then they play at Houston in week 9. They could have the chance to overwhelm that Texans offensive line, which is still in limbo, which I'll further elaborate on when I preview the Texans team, but I think they can win that game. The Raiders, I think that that the Broncos and the Chargers both have the opportunities to sweep the Raiders. I know that Pete Carroll is the head coach there, and they've added some talent for sure. Geno Smith at the quarterback position, Ashton Genty, Jack Beck. They have Max Crosby on defense, Brock Bowers being one of the best tight ends already going into year 2 in the NFL. But I still think the Raiders at Max, which I'll talk about in their video, which I'll be making next, stay tuned for that, only have the potential to win 8 games, but I'm not going to roast them on that. Then they play against the Chiefs for the first time in week 11. Then they have a bye week in week 12. I think that's a perfect time to have a bye week, anywhere from like week 10 to week 14, 15 area. If you have a bye week in that area, I think that you're cooking with Crisco. Then week 13, they play against the Commanders. That can be a pick-em game. That'll be at Washington too. But like I said, their defense, I think their defense gives them a shot in any single game that they play against throughout the regular season and potentially the postseason. Then they play against the Raiders for a second time in week 14. Week 15, playing against Green Bay. That should be a good game. Playing against the Jaguars in week 16. The Chargers, the Chiefs a second time in week 17. And then finally in week 18, playing against the Chargers. And those final 2 games against the Chiefs and the Chargers, that can mean a lot for not only playoff positioning, but for a chance and opportunity to win a division in the AFC West. Well, like I stated, something the Broncos haven't done since 2015. And if you also want to look at their schedule in a different light, they only have 1 divisional game in their first 9 games before having 5 in their final 8 games. So if anything, you get to see how you shape up against teams in the AFC and NFC overall in the first 10 weeks or so. And then in the final 8 weeks, you get to see, you have the opportunity to put yourself ahead and have an opportunity to win a division in the AFC West. Me looking at that schedule, guys, I can see them winning 11 to 12 games. And I know it's crazy to say that because I made the argument for the Chargers in the previous video saying that they can win from probably 10 to 12 games this upcoming year too. And the Broncos, they were 10-7 last year, but I see them improving this year and winning 11 or 12. Like, I think regardless of the situation, you know, health always plays a role. Like, that's the most obvious thing ever in football particularly. But I think this team is going to win 11 or 12 games. And will that be enough to win the AFC West in their division? We'll see. Depends on the Chiefs and how they perform. I believe the Chiefs are going to be reinvigorated after getting embarrassed in the Super Bowl though. So take with that what you think. But I think the Broncos are going to win 11 or 12 games, and they have the shot to, even if they don't win the AFC West, I think that they can, if for example, be the 5th seed in the playoffs, they can be the 4th seed, whoever that team would potentially be. For example, if they played against the Texans, who were the 4th seed last year and in 2023, I wouldn't be shocked at all if the Broncos were to win that game and make it to the division round. It just depends on the matchup for me. But this team certainly can be a great threat in the AFC overall, despite whoever they play against. I like them against any team in terms of their chances. I'm not saying that I would pick them over any team in AFC or NFL overall. I think that they would give all opposing 31 teams tough games and be a tough matchup for anyone to play against. And I believe that this Denver Broncos team, you can make the argument that they're ready to win now. And I'm answering the question to this video. Yes, I think that they are ready to win now. In a season where last year, for example, the Washington Commanders made the NFC Championship game, and I know the NFC is inferior to the AFC, even though I think that some people overrate how much NFC is inferior, because yes, the AFC for sure has more talented teams, but the NFC still has some dogs there. But not going on a tangent with that, the Denver Broncos are certainly a team that I wouldn't be shocked at all. And honestly, you can make the case that you should expect them to be in the divisional round. I know that might be a crazy thing to say right now, but if you look at it from a personnel standpoint, if you really look at how this team has developed under Sean Payton and how they've acquiesced and added talent to this roster in 2025, that's not a shocking thing or surprising thing to say at all, because they have the roster defensively, the personnel offensively to be complementary and bully teams offensively and defensively and be improved overall and set themselves as a really formidable threat in the AFC this year and for years going forward. That's my take on the Broncos though, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think that the Denver Broncos are ready to win now? And with that, on what level are they ready to win now? Are they ready to win a playoff game? Are they ready to potentially make an AFC championship game? Or even shockingly, do you expect them to see them in the Super Bowl for the first time since Super Bowl 50 in 10 years? Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. Like I said, I think this team is improved. They have the potential to win 11 to 12 games and be a perennial contender in the AFC and be one of the final 4 teams remaining in the AFC as well too. But y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. Thank you guys for your support always. Make sure to hit the like button and turn on post notifications. A lot more content coming here with the NFL season preview videos. This was the 15th team that we've previewed, so we're almost halfway there in terms of finishing all 32 teams. We're exactly 3 weeks away from the start of the 2025 NFL season, with the first matchup being the Cowboys taking on the defending Super Bowl champions and the Philadelphia Eagles. We're getting closer, guys. I'm ready for it. This is a beautiful time, man. College football is almost here too as well, so we're about to have a plethora of great high-level football content collegiately and professionally to watch soon. So y'all stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for the next video video in this NFL season preview series where we'll be wrapping up the AFC West, previewing the Las Vegas Raiders. Yes, sir. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter/X at SwaggyRuss, on TikTok at SwaggyRuss2 for shorts, reels, and all stuff like that. To stay connected and we can talk about sports, anything in life in general, guys. I love you guys so much. Keep Jesus Christ at the center of your lives always. Know that he loves you and has great purpose for you guys always. And yeah, with that being said, keep being legendary and y'all have a good one.